Hey everyone, in Audio Loves, this is Thom. I hope you're doing well. Heather sent along some questions for me to answer for the group. I'm excited to do that, and I have my lovely wife and co-narrator.
Hello.
We do a lot of duet narrations over to my right, Charlie Angel, and she's going to feed me the questions, and I'm going to do my best to answer them. So here we go.
Okay, question number 1. What or who inspired you to become a voice actor or narrator?
Good question. I have absolutely no background in drama or acting in any way, shape, or form.
You're a jock.
I was a jock and then a nerd. I was actually a university professor, which is where I met my wife. You can figure out the details with that. And yeah, so I was doing that. Every Tuesday night, I would go to this place that had cheap tacos, Taco Tuesday. And for some reason, I became known as the guy with the voice. And so all the people would come crowding around to the window to see the guy with the voice who was speaking to them about tacos. Anyway, yeah, so things happened in my life, needed to find some new sources of income. And my wife said, hey, you should try, doing something with your voice. So I did a few commercials. I could still do some of that work, trailers, that kind of stuff. And found my way into the world of long narration or audiobooks and the wonderful world of romance. So that's my path, the Reader's Digest version.
Question number 2. If you could have lunch with any person alive or dead, who would it be?
Good question. I would probably say Octavius, who became Augustus, the first emperor of Rome, which is also the namesake of my youngest and last cat.
Not your last.
Oh, not my last, I guess. But yeah, no, I would probably have lunch with Octavius before he became Augustus, perhaps in the midst of his battles with Mark Antony and Cleopatra, to decide the fate of the Roman world. Kind of my nerdy side. But yeah, that's what I would do.
How are you chosen for a role?
A number of different ways. There's an auditioning process that happens where rights holders or authors post a book and they say, hey, are you interested in, trying out for this book? And then a lot of different voices, try out. So there's that way. And sometimes I'm surprised at the roles I get, and sometimes I'm surprised at the roles I don't get. It just varies from author to author, book to book. Sometimes people contact me through social media. They've heard of a narration that I've done for another book or whatever, and they say, hey, could you do that with one of my books? And so, yeah, that's how the process works.
Do you have a recording routine?
I do. I do have a recording routine. So I have, excuse me, I have a normal 9-to-5 job. So I do that Monday through Friday. Come home, usually eat dinner pretty quickly, and then hop in the studio, usually with my wife. We do a lot of duet narration, so we spend a lot of time in the studio together. Before I get in the studio, I always take a few bites of a Granny Smith apple, the perfect thing to get the voice in the right place, to get all those clicks and whatever out of your mouth. And
it does nothing.
It does everything.
No, it doesn't.
Anyway, so I do that, and yeah, have some water. I have this weird thing that I do that I chill water in used Monster Energy drink cans. Don't ask me why, but I do. And I usually bring one of those into the studios with me, the chilled can with water and Granny Smith apples.
Do you research accents for a role?
Absolutely. Because I have no formal training. I've never done a full stage performance or film performance in a voice. I grew up in Oklahoma, and I spent a lot of time in Texas. That accent has been muted a lot by spending a lot of time in the upper Midwest, in Chicago, and then now Grand Rapids, where I live. And yeah, so when it comes to accents, you can get on YouTube. And sometimes you can find famous actors who have a particular accent, and you can listen to them. There are also voice coaches that do little tutorials, like, if you really want an Irish accent, you need to do this. And so you try it, and sometimes it works great, and sometimes it doesn't. And so you're trying to do a Russian accent, and it sounds like you're doing a Japanese accent, or who knows. And so it's always helpful to have somebody else, because sort of like singing in the shower, you think you sound great, and then somebody else listens, and so when I'm doing something like that, I always have a little help. So yeah, the Texas drawl, or the Southern y'all, is a little easier for me, simply because of where I was born and raised, and it's a default for me. So
How do you prepare for a dramatic scene?
it really depends upon the scene. I think, because all dramatic scenes are different. Is it a fight scene? Is it a drama scene? Is it a scene that involves a lot of violence? Is it a scene that's really out of character for who I am, in terms of like things you need to say, ways you need to act or be? And sometimes it's just kind of like just stopping and kind of getting in that place, or if it's a sad moment, thinking of something sad. I've found that the more that you can kind of get there, the better off you are. My wife often tells me that I'm not very good at that. So like in tense scenes, they were supposed to be really sad. I'm like, I can't believe I lost him. Like the opposite of what you're supposed to be feeling, and that's a little over dramatized. But anyway, yeah, and so
Very helpful.
And then sometimes a little bubbly helps too. So.
Have you ever been recording a scene and messed up to the point where you had to stop or start over?
Yes, absolutely. Usually that happens when, for some reason, maybe you're moving between different projects, or you move from one day to the next, and you pick up with a project and you simply forget the voice. And in that case, you have to start over, really. Just kind of start over from scratch. Because there's so much dialogue in a chapter, and if you're in the wrong voice, there's no use going back in and trying to splice in the proper voice. You just kind of got to roll with it and move on. So, yeah.
Where do you typically record your narration?
So I'm actually sitting in the makeshift studio that we built in a spare bedroom. It's made out of doors, and we got it, at like a Lowe's, Home Depot. And we have some echo proofing kind of stuff, the kind of things, garage bands use. You can buy pretty cheap online, and built this. We've not yet purchased like a full sound studio or soundproofing booth that you can buy and put in a room, but we'll see what happens in the future.
Do you make some special marks on the books beforehand? If so, how?
I used to. I love pens, and I love pens of different colors, and so this was like definitely my thing. So I would highlight and underline and do all of that kind of stuff.
It's one of his sexiest qualities.
Yeah, very.
Collects pens.
Collects pens, yes. Shh, don't tell anyone. Yeah, so I would do that. The longer that we've done this, the easier it's gotten, to sort of do it and kind of figure out what's going on. We often read in tandem. And so the one who's not sort of on point, kind of the main narrator of that section, can provide some, guidance and clues and little prompts here and there.
Do you drink while narrating?
Well, you know the answer to that question, because I already have. And so every once in a while. But not, you can't drink heavily simply because alcohol dries your mouth out, and then your audio engineer will kill you. Because your mouth will be full of pops and clicks and all kinds of other things that, frankly, nobody wants to hear. So, yeah, if you do that sparingly, unless it's a drunk character, and then it's a win-win for everyone, because then you sound the way you are.
Do you do all your own proofing, editing, and mastering? No.
No. It's a full family business that we have. So when I began, I was doing pretty much all of it, and it's sort of grown. My wife does a lot of it, and believe it or not, my mother-in-law is our primary audio engineer. So yeah, we
It's
have
kind of awkward sometimes.
Yeah, it can be. It's a full family business, so they help out, and we go back and forth, and kind of all in-house, and we do the best we can.
How many edits do you go through?
It really depends upon the book and the author. I mean, some books it's just one take and it's pretty clean and it goes to the editor, and any problems that arise, any weird noises or whatever happens in the course of narrating can be edited out. There are other times, send it to the audio engineer and you get it back like, okay, there's 6, 7 different markers of words that are unclear, or just sometimes weird things happen with the recording and the connection gets messed up for like 20 seconds and you need to do that again. And then there's other times too, you send it off to the author or the rights holder and they're like, no, that's not going to work. We try to keep that to a minimum, and have learned over the years that if you do a whole book, and the author hasn't approved all the voices, that can be a problem. And so trying now to go kind of chapter by chapter to make sure, particularly when new characters are introduced, do you like this character? And that way you can minimize the back and forth and get things processed through and to the people that want to hear it.
How many times do you need to read a chapter to say, I'm okay to do it? And how many times do you need to read a steamy sex scene?
I mean, I think, again, it depends upon the nature of the chapter. I read under different names, and so I do some long narration of like history, and apart from like a few names maybe that I don't know, geographical places or obscure historical figures, you can really narrate it and read it almost in the first go. For dramatic stories, fictional stories, you need to kind of at least walk through it and kind of know what's going on. That can be kind of a skim read. So that gives a sense of that. So varies. In terms of the sex scene, you can really kill the kind of natural tension that is the sex scene, right? You keep rehearsing it over and over and over again. There's no passion. There's no excitement. It's your 20th time to have read it, and it comes through in the way you narrate. Thankfully, I narrate a lot of those scenes with someone that I have great chemistry with, and sexual tension and all of that. And so we often just kind of let that roll, and it turns out pretty well, I think.
Okay. Does it get interesting when narrating a hot sex scene?
It can. I'll say 2 things about that. We're all kind of limited by our own imaginations. And so, different people like different things in and outside of the bedroom. And when you inhabit the mind of an author, you kind of get to see their world and the world they're imagining and what their characters say and do and feel. And that can surprise you as a narrator. You learn things about human beings and sex and whatever. And then you also find your own body responding in ways that you may or may not have anticipated. Like, I would have never have imagined that storyline, that sequence of events would have actually turned me on, and it does. And when you're reading with someone and you have good sexual tension, there are times to turn off the mic and take care of a little business. And when that happens, I usually say, thanks to the author, like, nice job, nicely done.
Yeah, me too. Let's see. Do you have go-to character voices, or do you base them on the character descriptions in the book?
You certainly try to do something based upon the way the character is described. Now, that doesn't always work, so you need to make sure that what the author is describing in the text is actually how they hear the voice, because there can be a disconnect on those 2 points. There's a number of voices you sort of develop over time, and I think if you listen to any narrator, across a series of books, you can see like, wait a minute, that sounded like that other character in that other book, and that's just the limits of one person in the human voice. So, yes, for sure.
How long does it typically take to produce an audiobook?
Again, it varies in terms of like how complex the book is. If it's just you reading, the history of whatever, that's kind of straightforward. You're just kind of going there. If you're reading with somebody else, it's double time because you're both, in the room. If you're reading like simultaneous duet, and that's something I should say about that is that there's all kinds of different narration. There's of course the single narrator doing it all. There's dual narration where you have A male voice reading male chapters and all the parts in the male chapters, and a female voice reading female chapters with all the voices, male and female. Then you have a duet, where you have two different people and you're splicing the pieces together. And then you have simultaneous duet, which is actually where you have two people who are actually in the room recording at the same time. And listeners have preferences all the way across the board. The last option can be the most time intensive because you're both there, but it can also be the most rewarding because you get immediate feedback on what you're doing, and there's a lived reality of an actual conversation going on, and an actual tension, and you can draw upon your relationship, and in hot moments of an argument, or anything like that. In terms of editing, again, it depends upon how clean it is, what you're editing. 3 to 5 hours, so it really does depend. A general rule of thumb, people say 4 to 5 hours of total time involved to produce one finished hour of audio, and that number goes up and down again depending upon the kind of book, complexity, etc.
Do you listen to audios? And if you do, which are your favorite books?
Yeah, I do. I'm a nerd and an academic by nature, and so and training, and so I like kind of smart, heady kind of books like that. And so we recently listened to Hillbilly Elegy on a long trip, and on this last trip it was In the Time of Butterflies. In the Time of Butterflies, yeah, which is it's kind of an iconic
feminist nonfiction novel.
Feminist nonfiction novel with some fascinating Hispanic characters in an interesting time period. And so it's always good feminist literature is a lot of fun. So that's kind of the stuff that I listen to. My son likes to listen to Hank the Cowdog, or The Great Brain, kind of older ones, but yeah.
Who is your favorite character? You can only pick one, and why?
Oh, so many good characters. I really think this would change depending upon where you are in life, but right now, I would say Carter Hastings from Letty Harper's Resuscitate Me. He's kind of a strong, kind of independent, man's man kind of thing, and that resonates with me. I'm a big guy, 6'4", jock, all of that. But Carter in the book experiences some real brokenness. He's strength to brokenness, and that's Resuscitate Me is kind of the story. And I've experienced some brokenness recently in my life, and some hardship, and I resonate with the need to be strong in the midst of all that.
What do you do to celebrate after you finish a book and or series?
Usually it's kind of my normal nightly routine. So you're sort of like, yes, we're finished. And then you move, the stack of papers or notes, whatever, to the finished pile. Get the files ready to send off, wait to the audio engineer, or get them ready to be edited. And then usually I work out. I have a rowing machine that I like to row. That's kind of my thing, rowing. And I rub my wife's feet. That's a nightly task. Yes, that really does happen every night. And then, go up, take a bath, relax, maybe have a glass of wine, and just kind of rejoice that a book's finished and look forward to, getting it out there for people to hear.
That's all they want to know about you.
That's all they want to know about me?
That's it.
There are no questions about tattoos?
No, I'm sorry. There's not.
Well, I have tattoos.
He's very proud of his tattoos.
But,
he likes to talk about them.
So maybe next time you'll ask about tattoos. Do you have any tattoos? And then I could answer those questions for you. Anyway, thanks for listening to this, and thanks for liking the narrations. And I guess I'll catch you in your ear. That's very strange. I don't know. Anyway, thanks, Audio Loves. Love you all. Bye.